This is Jose Trevino of the Texas Rangers, and you're listening to Texas Rangers Fanatic podcast with Alex Plink.
What's up, Rangers Nation? This is Alex Plink with Dallas Sports Fanatic, and this is Texas Rangers Fanatic podcast, episode 21. As we are now able to drink, and what better way? This was completely on accident, but what better way to celebrate turning 21 as far as this podcast goes? I've got Emily Jones joining me later. I do not have a glass of wine today, but I'm sure there will be some sort of wine in my hands within this weekend of President's Day. And of course, glass of wine and Rangers baseball, what better combination is there? Some interesting news happening over the course of the last week. We'll get into, there's two big things that, at least for me, happened. And of course, everybody knows about the big trade that went down on Saturday regarding Elvis Andrus, now an Oakland Athletic, and it was a tough week. I will be honest, it was a shocking piece of news, no doubt about that. A lot of people, again, didn't quite expect it. There was some buzz around the organization that a big deal was going to happen, but nobody really knew that it was that kind of deal. So, yeah, I mean, I've kind of said this earlier. It was inevitable. Elvis Andrus was not going to be a Texas Ranger. I just didn't see so much of it. I mean, you look at the plan that the Rangers had. They were looking to have Elvis possibly, not even a guarantee, but possibly start at third base. And then forever how long? Because once Josh Jung is ready to go, then Josh Jung is going to be your third baseman. So Elvis, in the meantime, if he had won the starting position at third base, he's going to get what? A couple of months starting at third base? Maybe 3? By the trade deadline, I would figure that Josh Jung probably is ready by halfway through the season. He's starting off at AAA already. I think the Raiders really want to see what he's got in the big leagues. So the deal, when you really look at it, the deal doesn't really surprise. I think the more shocking part is Chris Davis going to the Texas Rangers. And nice to see Chris Davis, still trying to keep his career going. You know, I know the numbers aren't too kind unless he's playing against the Rangers. So on the bright side, Ranger fans, you don't have to worry about Chris Davis with a K going absolute bonkers on your team, which seems to happen quite often. So just kind of breaking down the deal, the Rangers sent Elvis Andrus and Aramis Garcia, who was a catcher, to Oakland. The A's sent Jonah Heim, Dan Acker, and Chris Davis. Now, the book on Jonah Heim is he is a really good catcher that could develop into a top-notch prospect for the organization, which is good. And you can even look at it in two ways. Either that's good for Rangers' future, or that's a good piece, trading piece, that you can utilize from this organization to go out and acquire guys that you really want to acquire. You know, I know that the Rangers are looking ahead at some high mighty pieces within the next few off seasons. They get a pitcher, Dane Acker, and then of course designated hitter Chris Davis. Chris Davis, I would assume, would be your main DH if he wins a spot on the club. And it does become a little interesting because DH, I was thinking more so Willie Calhoun would be their main DH, possibly get some reps in left, possibly get some reps in right. I don't know if that kind of sets out the tone regarding what Joey Gallo's future is going to be. I still think it's a bit 50-50. I don't think it's as crazy as you would think of him possibly staying. Again, I think it's a bit of a mixed bag, but it'll be interesting to see how this alignment is come opening day and then come August 1st. I think it's going to be a vast difference type of roster that you're going to see come April 1st and then August 1st. So in the meantime, again, I think the Rangers' plan is, and it could be that the A's wanted to give away Chris Davis, and the Rangers were willing to, in regards to Elvis Andrews, say, okay, we'll take on Chris Davis, because I know as far as his salary too. So it's a bit of a cancel out. But again, tough day on Saturday. Elvis Andrus, when you think of Texas Rangers, that's who you think of. I have said this numerous times. It's like that relationship that you have, you're with your partner, and you two are having a great time. You guys love each other, you think highly of one another, you want what's best for each other, but then you sit down and you kind of have that talk, or it's a revelation that hits, and you're like, you know what, I just don't see our paths, us being anything in the future, just because you want what you want, I want what I want. We want to be happy for each other, but at some point you have to realize that for you to be happy, for me to be happy, we have to go our own separate ways. And you think about, are we going to break up? Are we going to break up? And the day finally comes that you two sit down and you have a conversation and say, look, I think, we want different things. We just have to end the relationship. And that's essentially what happened on Saturday. The Rangers ended the relationship with Elvis Andrus. They sent Elvis to a contending team. I know you can say what you want about the projections, that the A's are only a couple games over 500. I still think the Oakland A's, listen, we've always underestimated the Oakland Athletics. It's almost like getting a hot dog at a baseball game. It's what you do. You get a hot dog at a baseball game, you bring your glove, and you underestimate the Oakland A's in a regular season. And sometimes it works, but more often than not, it doesn't. So good to see Elvis Andrus. And at the very least, Elvis is not a guaranteed spot at third base, not his natural position on the Texas Rangers. In Oakland, he may not be guaranteed first spot on the A's depth chart at short, but he is on the A's depth chart at short. They're bearing an Isaiah Kiner-Falefa injury. There is no way Elvis Andrus was going to be a shortstop for the Texas Rangers in 2021. That just wasn't going to happen. That spot was already guaranteed to Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. And who knows? Maybe that's sort of a conversation that was leaning towards. I know what was relayed out was it was going to be a competition for third base. But who knows? Maybe this was Chris Young and John Daniels' plan all along to say, hey, we're willing to offer up Elvis Andrus to a team that needs a shortstop. A's need a shortstop because they lost Marcus Semien. So let's go ahead and let's see who will bite. The A's bought. And yeah, I know you kind of break a rule by not trading with your division rivals, but look at what the Red Sox and Yankees did, a small transaction as far as trade goes. So it happens. It happens. Got to do what you got to do. And good for Elvis. And I'm really excited to see how things are going to go for Elvis Andrus in Oakland. I think it's going to be a good change of scenery. And who knows? You may see a new and improved Elvis Andrus. I know that's not what Ranger fans want to hear, but I always like to see those types of stories where guys get traded and then they do really well, and the opposite for guys coming to Arlington and do that. So rest assured, the Rangers are still looking for a third baseman. Right now, it is between Rougned Odor, Charlie Culberson, and I guess if you want to go the Nate Lowe route, depending on Ronald Guzman's performance at first. And who knows, maybe that opens the door and Ronald Guzman has a better opportunity to make the club now that the Rangers don't have a distinct third baseman. And maybe Nate Lowe is your main guy at third base, at least for now. Who knows? So it's kind of like the Abbott and Costello routine. I don't know, is that third? Yeah, I don't know, is that third? That's 100% true. So the Rangers earlier today on February 11th announced, well, they announced their game times earlier, but all other teams have announced their game times. And this is kind of a fun little thing I always like to do when you look at the game times and just kind of see some things. And there are a couple things. Obviously, I had a feeling that the Rangers opening day in Kansas City was going to be at 3:00. That typically is when teams will have their opening day. Rangers home opener is at 3:00 as well. The Rangers do not play a night game in the regular season until Tuesday, April 6th. They will play 4 consecutive games during the daytime that will start at either 3:00, 3:10, or earlier. Another thing that you'll notice, and one thing I really noticed on this, guys, is the West Coast games. So everybody always wants to bitch about 9:00 games, 9:00 games, 9:00 games. And it is annoying. I'm not going to deny that. It is very annoying. Well, the Angels and the A's, and I guess the Giants, but the Giants I think did this earlier, are very kind enough to have their games start 30 minutes earlier. The only games, and I'm dead serious on this, the Rangers will have, and I'm kind of going through because they have 3 series against Seattle. So I have the 3 series against Seattle. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Rangers will have 5 games. 5 games between Monday through on a Monday through Friday, so a weekday, that will start at 9:00 or later. Either the Mariners or the Dodgers. They have a 3-game series in LA against the Dodgers. And if you want to just go from Monday to Thursday, because Friday, a lot of people don't really care, because if you've got school, you got the weekend. If you got work, for the most part, you have the weekend. The Rangers only have 2 games. 2 games that start at 9:00 or later. When you're talking about 9:00 start times, meaning Rangers Live starts at 8:30. Again, the A's, I will say this, the A's and the Angels are kind enough to say, you know what? We don't need that. Let's start at 8:30. So Rangers Live starts at 8. Love it. Absolutely love it. We'll see how that goes, but that should prevent any midnight finishes, or at least at midnight when you're talking about 3.5-hour games. And of course, with the interleague schedule, the Rangers do not go to San Diego. San Diego comes here. One thing I noticed, obviously no ESPN games. I didn't see any Fox games. They haven't released the television, what TV they're on. I assume they're all going to be on Fox Sports Southwest. A decent amount of day games too that I've noticed. They get a day game at Anaheim. Can you believe that? Seems like they did last year, but it just seems like the Angels never throw them a bone. So they do get a day game against the Angels. And for the most part, they get day games throughout the end of their series. They don't get one in the Cleveland series. They don't get one in the Yankees series. I'm just going through. They don't get one in the Houston series, but it's a off day, 2 games off days, so you don't have to worry about that. And they don't get one in the Rays series early on, and they do have a 2-game series against the Angels where they don't. So you get a couple of those, but for the most part, you have your 2 night games, then you have a day game and go off, or you have your 3 night games and have your day game and go off. So I'm really, that those kind of things are fascinating. I'm really curious to see how the season turns around. I think when you look at the roster, it is going to be a rebuild. But you know what? In order to get to the top, sometimes you have to rebuild, especially when you're a franchise that cannot spend the money like the Dodgers can or the Yankees can. Sometimes you just got to start from square one. And unfortunately, the Rangers are at the point where they do have to start at square one, and they can't go out and get a Trevor Bauer, or they can't go out and get a deal to get a major superstar. And, you know, sometimes it's about luck of the Irish. You got to go out and hopefully you're good with your trades. You know, hopefully the Lance Lynn deal gets you something. Hopefully the Rafael Montero deal gets you something. But or if they do indeed go out and get Joey Gallo, or if they do go out and trade Joey Gallo, hopefully there's something well within. But that'll be intriguing to see. So Emily Jones is coming up. I will discuss a little bit for Emily Jones, and of course we'll dive into the Elvis Andrews situation, just sort of about, how the year was last year, what he missed most, and just roughly what Elvis Andrews being gone means. And it's again, it's a tough pill to swallow. It's tough to go into spring training knowing Elvis Andrews is not on the roster, nor going into opening day and realize Elvis Andrews is not there, but he will be there. Hopefully, I don't know what the A's plan entitles, but for those of you that are looking to get tickets and want to see Elvis Andrews is on the A's, first game, June 21st, will be the first game at Globe Life Field when the A's come to town. So that'll be the first game that the A's will come to Globe Life Field. The A's will come in June, July, and August. FYI, the A's and Rangers will finish their 3-game series in Arlington before the All-Star break. In August, they will play 13th, 14th, and 15th. July, it is 9th, 10th, and 11th. And June is a weekday 4-game series that goes the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. So the Rangers and A's will play 10 games in Arlington, 9 in Oakland. We all know the Rangers' success in Oakland. We've got Emily Jones coming up. Let's see what she's got. This is the Texas Rangers Fanatic Podcast.
This is Wes Benjamin of the Texas Rangers, and you're listening to the Texas Rangers Fanatic Podcast with Alex Plank.
Well, I am introducing someone that doesn't really need much of an introduction because, let's face it, everybody listening to this, you know who this is. Emily Jones of the Texas Rangers. Not only Texas Rangers, but the Mom Game Podcast. Highly recommended, definitely. Emily, thank you so much for joining on this pre-February. We are going into February. Spring training is here. My goodness.
Yes, Alex, glad to be with you. Glad that baseball is about to get going again.
How has this off season been just in general? It's strange because obviously things didn't start until March. So at this time last year, we're all just like, okay, another season. But then it just sort of feels like this off season time-wise has been a lot longer than normal.
Yeah, I think because of the shortened season, everything's just dragged on. And the fact that nothing to this point in time has been normal. None of my off-season activities have been normal. I've been home a lot more, which is not normal. But yeah, it's just been different. Just like everyone else, we're just trying to find ways to make it through, put one foot in front of the other and keep our heads down, and hopefully we'll make it out of this crazy thing sooner rather than later. But yeah, it's been different. It's been challenging at times, but fortunately, my family's healthy and we're all still here. And, that's as much as we can ask for at this point in time.
I will say this with me, what's been keeping me going is the Mom Game Podcast. And by the way, I'm sure I'm not your target audience, being a 29-year-old single guy living by himself in his apartment, but I give it a thumbs up because honestly, you and Julie are fantastic. And I was actually listening to the episode with Jake last week, and it really kept me intrigued, interested. Again, I will admit, I'm not your target audience.
Yeah, but listen, Alex, we welcome all listeners. And that's kind of what Julie and I, when we started doing this, we kind of felt like there was this niche that wasn't there, but that we had enough, I don't want to say appeal because that sounds weird, but there wasn't a whole lot of females talking about sports, especially in this market. So we felt like we had that and we could bring in the female contingent by default. And then we could bring in the male contingent because both of us have, a substantial male following. And two, we also like to think that we're just kind of relatable. And so we hope that the guys will give us a listen for a little bit of sports insight, and then maybe for a little bit of insight into, the goings on in a woman's brain, which can be terrifying sometimes.
Well, and I will say this because, and to your honesty, how many times, like, I'm curious to know based on your opinions of this club in general. And I know there's a sense of, here I am doing my job. I'm working for the Texas Rangers. I'm reporting to the Texas Rangers, but you have more access to the mental side for what the players go through because you see it on an everyday basis than even people who are sitting in the press box area that don't get that or that are watching it from home. So I'm very fascinated to see that part.
Yeah, and I think for me that just goes back to something that I believed in throughout my 20+ year broadcasting career. And I felt very adamant even early on about establishing relationships. And when you're in journalism, that's not something that's exactly smiled upon. In fact, it's very frowned upon. And it was, not well received by my media counterparts early on in my career. And I just kind of I wasn't willing to budge on that. I felt like I could do my job and still maintain and establish relationships with the people that I cover. And not only them, but their families, their friends, all those kind of things. And to me, it was an important part of my job. And I'm glad that I kind of stuck to it because, like I said, it wasn't popular in the beginning, and even in the middle, and even sometimes still now. And so, but this is kind of a niche that I've carved out for myself, and it's the way that I was committed to going about my job. And 20+ years later, I'm glad I kind of stuck to my guns.
I think that's the thing is that you don't budge in any way. If there's something you believe in, you stick to it, and people may not agree with it. And I'm sure, look, in anything, there's a respectful way to point something out. Like, hey, I've always said, if I'm doing something wrong, let me know. And there's a respectful way to do that. And I feel like that's something that kind of gets lost, is that people just want to take a jab at it as quickly as they can and as harsh as they can because they think that's going to solve the problem, which, by the way, it's not going to solve the problem. Spoilers,
Right.
I mean, but I feel like a lot of people want to just do that when you can point out a flaw in a very respectful way. And
listen, there can be different approaches, right? There's different ways to do every job. And this is just the way that I've chosen to approach my job. And it's a way that I'll continue to approach my job until I'm done with it. But yeah, it doesn't mean that I have any less respect for someone who doesn't approach it this way, who isn't into the relationship building. I mean, look no further than T.R. Sullivan, who, was a baseball writer for eons and one of the most well-respected in the game. And he would never call Woody, Woody. He would never call Banny, Banny, because you don't call managers, players, people by their nicknames. You call them by their first name. And so that was the way he went about his job. And he did not like the way I did my job at the beginning, trust me. But TR and I learned a lot from each other, and we became friends, and we both realized that there are different ways to do this job in a very effective way. And TR did it at a highly effective rate for a very long time. And I like to think, and you'd have to check with him, but I think he respects the way that I do my job as well.
And that's even for me too. Like, there was a few things that he pointed out, but he did it in a way like, okay, I see where it's coming from. And especially somebody who's been in the industry so long, it's kind of like, okay, you don't have to say anything. Like, there's nothing that he himself can gain by giving me advice. So the fact that you take the time to do that is amazing. And that's why, like, even though he and I, it's only been a couple years, those 2 years last a long time, last eons.
Well, and you're lucky you got TR late in his career, because let me tell you something, when I first got into the Rangers clubhouse, he was a little grumpier than he was toward the end. And I say that in the most loving way possible, because I adore TR. But he was gruff, and he was rough on me those first couple of years. And so he lightened up there toward the end. I'll say the same thing about John Blake. You're lucky you've gotten John Blake at this accelerated, stage in his career. He's softened up quite a bit too. But yeah, I mean, we all evolve, we all adapt, and it's just part of the human nature dynamic that's in any job that you do.
That was my plan, not really. It was just the way things turned out. So speaking of long tenured careers, Rangers fans got a little bit of tough news on Saturday. Elvis Andrews is now wearing an A's uniform, and an A on top instead of a T will be in green and gold. I think a lot of us knew this was going to happen. I talked about it before. I felt like it's like that, that relationship that you have with like your partner, and you love them, you respect them, you want what's best for them, but it's not going to work out. And you know that you're going to have to break up. I felt like Saturday was the breakup, was the Rangers and Elvis Andrus just had to break up. Both are going in different directions. I will say this. I like the fact that the Oakland A's, they need a shortstop. Marcus Semion's now Toronto Blue Jay. So the fact that they sent Elvis to a place where he can be a starting shortstop and in an organization that needs one, I felt like was a good move on their part.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good move for them. It's a good move for, I feel like, all parties, honestly. Right. It doesn't make it any less painful. I mean, as someone who loves and cares about Elvis and views him as a child, as my son, not a child, but as my child. But yeah, I mean, it was, it obviously was not going to happen for him here, for him to be in the role that he's been so used to being in his entire career. And so for him to have the opportunity to go play every day in the place where he is so familiar on the field, and have a chance to contend. I mean, for goodness sake, regardless of what they do, it seems like the freaking A's are in the hunt every stinking year. And so I'm happy for him in that regard. He's at peace. He's in a good headspace. Of course, it's hard for him to say goodbye, but I think he realizes, baseball wise, this is what's best for him and for his family. And it's hard. It was hard for me to hear the news, and it's going to be hard for me to see him, wearing a different uniform. It's going to be hard for me to go into that clubhouse without him being in there. But this is the business of baseball, and this isn't the first, player I've had to say goodbye to that it's hurt and that it stung. But this one definitely stung pretty deep.
And I kind of want to know from there, because like you said, you've taken essentially Elvis Andrus under your wing, like you said, as your child. So how difficult is it? And I know, like you said, that's part of the business where these things do tend to happen. Do you just kind of move on and just send your best wishes, and then when he comes back, then you just welcome it with open arms, sort of like seeing a lost friend?
Yeah, of course. I mean, and those are some of my favorite visits, when old guys will come back and we can just sit around and shoot the shit in the clubhouse, and I'll go into the visitors clubhouse, and there's certain guys that I'll make that trip over there. I don't like to go in the visitors clubhouse a ton. But there are certain guys that I'll go over there. I remember one of my favorite, Nelson Cruz, going to see him is always so fun. He's a big old smile and that cackle laugh. And then one of the best times I had when Ian Kinsler came back, and Ian and I just sat and just reminisced about those 2010, 11, 12 teams, and just rolling, laughing about stuff, cracking on each other. And so those are some of my most favorite. Darren O'Day, who will never go away from baseball, apparently. He's like it's unreal. I mean, the guy just keeps signing deals. His wife, Elizabeth, and I are good friends. And I'm like, this man's arm never ages. Like, he's made the most wonderful career. I'm so happy for him and his family. But yeah, guys like that you just go back, and you just you want to say hi to them again. You want to reconnect with them again. And then a lot of those guys too, I stay in touch with, just via text or checking in every once in a while or whatever. But yeah, you maintain those relationships. I mean, it's not that way with everyone, but there are a certain number of guys that I keep up with. I mean, you look at Jenny Lewis and Susanna Moreland are two of my dearest friends. And so, you develop those relationships, and they don't just go away because a guy leaves a team and changes teams or retires from baseball. Those bonds stay strong. And so, I'm lucky to get to have formed those bonds, and I'm lucky to get to continue them.
Darren O'Day during Players Weekend, have it back on the back of his jersey, never go away. That rhymed. I don't know if that was meant to rhyme, but it did.
He's a man. I mean, the dude's amazing. It's unbelievable. I'm like telling my kid, let's go sidearm. Let's just go sidearm. I mean, you can pitched for 20 years in the big leagues.
I can't remember if we have any more submarine pitchers in baseball. You
know what? I saw highlights of somebody this past season, and I had flashbacks of Darren. I don't even need flashbacks; they're current backs, but whatever. So yeah, I mean, just that submarine low arm, he's not throwing the ball 100 miles an hour, just steady everyday O'Day instead of everyday Eddie, like Eddie Bordado.
What is so Elvis Andrus? I'm sure you have a lot of memories, but what's one that like sticks out?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, I don't think I could nail one down in particular. I think just seeing him, when he got here, he was so young. He was so raw. He was so talented, played the game with this wonderful enthusiasm that he continued throughout his career. But I think watching him grow up and evolve into this wonderful husband and father, and we saw glimpses of it when we go on these hospital visits over Christmas. And that was maybe one of my favorite things that people didn't necessarily see all the time. He had such a big heart for kids. And so when I would go, I'll get paired with different guys. We split up into groups. And so, sometimes I get paired with guys that be like, oof, like I don't have kids. I don't know how to talk to kids. I don't know how to talk to sick kids. Like, this is so overwhelming. Elvis would just walk in the room, sit down on the bed, carry on a conversation without missing a beat. And this was before he had kids. And that always impressed me. And I always told him, you're going to be a really, really good dad. And, he met Corey and they got married and, now they've got 2 kids and he's a wonderful father. And so maybe just seeing that side of him and now seeing him be a father and a husband, and just see him grow up right before my eyes and to see the man that he's become makes me, super proud.
I just remember 2009 opening day, just like the impact that he brought in. And I just remember, I don't mean to sound young or anything, but like watching some of the highlights in high school the next day and being like, oh man, there was a few people that were talking about it the next day. Like, oh man, the arm that he has, very Derek Jeter-esque. And just to see that timeline go, as you said, just to watch him grow up to be the individual that he is, and seeing all of the video today that was posted by the Texas Rangers, just it really warms your heart, and not really like enough to where tears are running down, but just enough to where it puts in a nerve and just be like, wow, just the career expansion that has gone. So definitely wish him the best. Hopefully things do work out in Oakland, and I just can't imagine that first time when the A's come to town just to see. I am hoping that there's going to be a crowd, because I'll tell you, the first time Chuck Morgan announces Elvis Andrews' name, there is going to be an uproar in that crowd. Yeah,
I think so too. And he deserves it.
He deserves it. Oh, obviously. And I just can't believe that, going into spring training without an Elvis Andrews.
I know. It's crazy.
So Emily, second year of Globe Life Field. What's your thoughts on the ballpark?
I mean, I love it. I think it's beautiful. I was always a proponent of the new ballpark because I've, basically birthed 2 children out there in the middle of the summer, and I've seen what it's like to really have to, to live in that heat. So I think that, it's going to provide such a fun game day and comfortable game day experience for our fans. The way that they constructed the ballpark, the layout, the ticket packages. My husband and I bought season tickets just because Lord knows how long I'm going to do this, but we wanted to have a permanent, place in the ballpark. And so, I just think the way that it was made, I know the outside takes some knocks and whatever. I'm not there to enjoy the architecture of the ballpark. I want to enjoy the game. And I think it provides a really awesome game experience. I love the way that it's more arena-like and goes up rather than out. You do feel closer to the action. So I'm just super excited for our fans to get to experience it. I was sad that they didn't get to this past season, and I'm just hoping as many of them can get in there as safely possible this year.
One thing that I noticed during the season, and in day games, you'll see this, is when the roof is open, the sun reflection, and you'll see that, depending how many times I'll have the roof open for like 3:00 games, but the way the sun reflects off the roof, I thought is beautiful. And to see that sort of now in right field, be a little, maybe a little weary for fans because you may still catch the sun. But I thought it looked fantastic. And
Yeah,
so,
and you might catch the sun, but it'll be momentary and it won't be 800 degrees. So,
no. Anybody who complains about that has obviously not been to the old park.
Right. Yes.
And then just not having, and then I'm sure for you, like not needing a fan down where you're sitting at, it's just got to be fantastic.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about any of that. I mean, in fact, I needed a blanket this past year because it was so chilly. So
really?
It'll be quite the opposite this year. That's for sure.
Oh man, isn't that amazing? Like first time we're in there, I was actually wearing like jeans, no shorts, but just jeans. And I'm like, what is and we're like the first time you walk in and you feel that AC breeze.
Yeah.
And it's just
awesome.
like, all right, already done.
Not complaining.
So what is the one thing you missed the most about the 2020 season?
Well, I mean, I don't miss anything about the 2020 season. I'm glad the 2020 season is over. Let
me rephrase this question.
Yeah.
What did you miss that was not included in the 2020 season?
I mean, it's just the interaction. Yeah. I mean, that's my jam, is being around the guys, getting to know them, getting to know more about them, so I can communicate those things to our fans. And so that was hard for me. And it's going to be hard for me this year because we don't know, at what point we'll be able to get back in the clubhouse and all that. So it makes it more challenging, but I just miss that interaction. I miss that hanging out. And, even the guys in the clubhouse say, because the restrictions are so much like after games and even before games where you can't really congregate and all that kind of stuff, they miss that. And they're getting more of that interaction than I am. But I miss that. I miss, shooting the shit. I miss cracking on each other. I miss seeing their families in the tunnel, before and after games. I miss all those things. So yeah, I just miss the human interaction. That is my favorite part of the game itself. And so I realize it's going to be that way to start this season, and hopefully it won't last the whole time through.
I think, just being down on the field, watching in person batting practice out there, because I know Jose's saying like it's such a vast ballpark, but when you're sitting so far up, you don't really get to see how big, truly huge this new ballpark is. But when you are standing on the grass, it's just massive. So not being able to kind of experience that and just the beautiful architecture throughout inside, those are some of the things, and just some of the offside conversations to just have, not even about baseball, but just about everything in general. I know with Hunter Pence talk, I know Pence is not on the team anymore, but definitely knowing about Hunter Pence and favorite video games to play. And I was even asking for advice for that. So just kind of missing out on some of those things.
Yeah.
And maybe pulling out some challenges out to some of the other gamers on the team.
Yeah, I'm not a gamer myself, but I'm sure these guys could give my kids some good tips because Mama doesn't have any, that's for sure.
I'm trying to develop a little thing from Willie, Joey, some other guys, like, for someone as a novice like me, and everybody likes competition of who would be the best to teach me. So not so much who's the best, but who's the best teacher when it comes to
which is
that's an all around
thing. Yeah.
But I know one thing also, like, did you miss not being able to go on the road trips?
Yeah, I did. I was happy to be home with my family, but you do miss that because that's where some of those bonds are formed. There's less media on the road, and so you have more of a chance to have one-on-one time with guys. And I feel like guys are different on the road. Like they're maybe a little more relaxed because there's not as many media members. The schedule's a little bit different. And so, I miss that. I miss traveling. I miss, that's kind of when I would travel, even if it sucked being away from my family, but that was kind of my time, and I could sleep in a little bit and then go run on a run to explore the city. And then, just kind of do things on your own time. And so, I definitely did miss that aspect of it, but I wouldn't trade the time that I had at home with my family because it was big for us. We loved it.
No, definitely. And I think that's the one thing, like you're in 2020 and up here. Yeah. I mean, pandemic things suck, but on one end, you had the opportunity to spend more time with your family. And I think a lot of people, you got a lot more family time, and especially I think prior to pandemic in an era where I don't think there was as much family interaction. And so now people are more congregating together. And I don't know, that may just be from my perspective. I don't know if that's was really the case.
Yeah, I mean, you were kind of forced to be together, and you kind of had to, decide whether you're going to make the most of this or you're going to kill each other. So, we didn't kill each other.
There you go. Hey, that's going to be, once everything ends and we're out of this pandemic, I feel like that's perfect. We didn't kill each other. Mission accomplished.
Absolutely.
I do know one piece of it there when I went to Boston. I've kept telling Dave on this because one of the things that I got asked, because I know you're a big advocate on this, is the Fenway Park lobster roll. Oh yeah, and so it's my favorite food item. That and the sushi at Safeco. Wait, is it called Safeco anymore? It's not even called T-Mobile anymore. It's called something weird. Something else. Anyway, so yes, the lobster roll at Fenway is my favorite. Second only to the sushi in Seattle. So I had it, and I'm going to be honest with you. I thought it was okay. Love it. Okay. Well, different. Well, but then again, like everybody asks, like, did you put it in butter? I'm like, no, should I have? Oh, come on. That's the only way to do it. Okay. So it's an agreement that like, because there's no, okay. I need a reprieve. So next time I go to Boston, and I'm gonna make sure like maybe even just like write it down, be like put butter on there. No questions asked. There you go. I just wondered if maybe if it was just my taste buds, because I know I have a screwed up. Well, I mean, everybody has different taste buds. We all can't like the same things. That'd make us all pretty boring. So maybe it's just not your thing. Maybe. It was not. That's for sure. Maybe. I do know in San Francisco, the gluten-free chicken they had there was really good. So I would give that a plus. Try that out. Definitely. Emily, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time. You're so welcome. We got 2 weeks left until spring training starts? My goodness. And then coming. April 1st, opening day, April 5th, the home opener. Hopefully we'll have fans there, and hopefully those interactions will start going. I know fans are really excited, and be trucking along before we know it. Oh, man. Yeah. Hope to see you soon. I can't wait. Emily, thank you so much. Sure, no problem, Alex. Take care. And that was Emily Jones from the Texas Rangers. If you want to follow her on Twitter, you can follow her at Emily Jones McCoy, or on Instagram at Emily Jones 1977, or both. You should actually be doing both. And if you want to check out a Mom Game podcast, you can check that out on Twitter and Instagram at the Mom Game Pod. It will have the link to the actual podcast on both Twitter and Instagram pages, as her and Julie Dobbs just discuss, as Emily has mentioned, discuss sports, just discuss mom life. Something I think we all need to just kind of see, because I will say this, moms are everything. Absolutely. You just think about everything your mom has done. So it is, again, very informative, something I would definitely recommend. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do that at aPlinkTX, on Instagram at aPlinkTEX. For Rangers coverage, DallasSportsFanatic.com/Texas-Rangers. We going for Rangers coverage as we enter in spring training. There's going to be a lot of things, a lot of pieces unfolding. So you want to be sure that you have everything up to date. And Ranger fans, we are getting close as we head to the Saturday before President's Day. That means that spring training is right around the corner. In fact, it'll be 2 weeks from February 13th. So February 27th, the first Rangers spring training game. They'll be taking on the Kansas City Royals at Surprise Stadium. And then before you know it, April 1st rolls around. Rangers opening day against the Royals. And then before you know it, the home opener at Globe Life Field. And hopefully it will be the first Rangers home game that actually means something that has fans in. So fans can actually enjoy some Rangers baseball and not some out-of-town baseball. Granted, it was the postseason. You know, I mean, Braves, Dodgers, Rays, quality baseball. Rangers fans, I know you want to see your team on that field, and hopefully you'll get that chance come April 5th. Ranger fans, stay safe, stay warm, and spring training again right around the corner. Spring is upcoming. Thank you so much for listening.